All right. Well, welcome to another episode. I am Todd DeCapua from Red Arrow Addiction. I am joined also by Brent. Brent can do a quick introduction to himself, and then I'll do a quick intro. We'll go ahead and get into the story. What we're going to be doing is really just kind of like an interview and conversation between two buddies. We've known each other for a while through a couple different ways, which you will learn here in this. But this is going to be, we're going to try to keep it in and around that 30-minute video. We may actually turn this also into a podcast if you're listening that way. But we want to deliver a message, covering both on bear archery and hunting along with our passions. So to be able to share some of these stories, not only with you, but also with plenty of other folks, being able to influence you and others in a very positive way in your daily walk. So this is a lot of our experiences, our backgrounds. This is what we love to do. But again, Brent, if you don't mind doing a quick introduction of yourself, man, so people get to know you a little more.
Yeah, no worries. I'm Brent Henderson, live in Anderson, Indiana. I grew up in Pennsylvania. For those of you guys maybe tuning in from out there, great whitetail country and turkey country, great place to grow up. I live now in the what I call the state of confusion, Indiana. It's just like, is it going to rain? Is it going to snow? Is it going to be sunny? It's crazy here. But yeah, Todd and I we've known each other for a while. We kind of made our introductions through bear archery, how we got to know each other, which is one thing I'm sure we'll talk about. Is it's like a family. It's not like you get a bunch of shooters. We communicate with each other quite frequently because this is our passion. So it's good being with you.
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny as we were preparing for the conversation, we said, what are some of those agenda items or topics that we would love to have? And my wife was listening into the prep and she was like, man, you guys just sat there and kind of like told stories to each other. And I was like, yeah, that's a lot of what this is. So where we started, and we may end up just kind of, this will probably be a couple different episodes we're going to do over the coming months, but there's a comment or a statement or a branding that's out there around bear archery. And again, that's where, Brett and I have gotten to know each other. But it's the Fred Bear way. And, he and I have both reflected a lot on like, what does that mean to us? So, maybe we can kind of get started there, Brett. And I know that, as you and I were chit chatting, it's, what does the Fred Bear way mean to Brent? What does it mean to Todd? How is it similar? And again, I don't know if you want to lead us off just kind of on some of your thoughts.
The whole thing with the Fred Bear Way, it takes me back to when I was 8 years old. And this is a true story. My dad took me to see Fred Bear. My dad didn't hunt or fish, but there was a game dinner that was going to be in our area. And he was like, well, maybe my son might be into something like this. So he took me, I got to meet him, and I saw a video of Fred shooting that Kodiak, at whatever it was, like 5 yards or some crazy thing. And it was right before Christmas time, 18 below zero or some crazy thing. And I took a cardboard box and I drew a picture of a bear on there with big fangs and teeth bleeding and everything. And she said, I stayed out back and I kept shooting arrows into that until she had to make me come in. And I think when I think about the Fred Bear way, I think it's important to remember that those of us that really are in love with this sport of archery and we love hunting, first of all, we love animals. We're not killers, we're hunters. We eat what we harvest, all those things. I think that's part of the Fred Bear way. But we also take the time to practice. It's not like a weekend warrior, hey, I'm going hunting, I better go out and practice a couple arrows before I go. We owe it to those animals that we pursue to be proficient and accurate with what we do. If we've made a bad hit, to pursue them as best as we possibly can, which it happens to everybody because a branch might get in the way or something. But the more we practice ethics in the field. I think that all ties back in. Like I said, my dad was a guy that didn't hunt or fish, but he always took me because he knew I loved it. And I think that translates into another thing you can call the Fred Bear way, because when you go back and you watch videos of his hunts, he's not out there by himself. He's always got buddies with him. And when you notice he gets to camp, what does he do? He's sharpening his broadheads and he's practicing on targets before he ever goes out. It's an excellence, and it's deeply rooted in friendships and a love for the outdoors. So that's a big part of what it means to me.
Absolutely. And I know, as we were chatting, I mean, the conversation of, being able to get people out and into the outdoors, I mean, is kind of the starting point. And, this relationship, this brotherhood, I mean, it is unique. And part of it, I think, comes with, really not getting caught up in that rat race and the runaround and the daily everything. And again, what's really the priority? And, do you get off the beaten path? Do you have that adventure and that experience? And again, as I reflect, and one of the things I was just sharing is this past Friday, I was in Gainesville, Florida, which is where the Bear Archery manufacturing plant is. And my expectation was I was going to come in, meet with someone, be able to get a quick 20-30 minute tour of the facility, everything else. I ended up being there for 2 hours. You know, I met with somebody named Neil who spent an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 30 minutes with me in Fred Bear's office, showing me the drafting table, giving me the stories behind various risers that were laying around in his office, pulled out a patch from the vault, which was, 20, 30 years old patch, and handed it to me and said, Todd, I want you to have this.
Oh, that's very cool.
And I said, are you kidding me? And then, the younger man that I got to work with, somebody named Jared, he met me at the pro staff door and walked me in and said, welcome, look around, let me know if you have any questions about the equipment, you know, and I'm looking around and I'm like, this is unbelievable. I mean, here is a preserved, I had to walk past the reserved Fred Bear parking spot to get into the pro shop, and then I'm greeted by Jared. And again, then I meet with Neil. But then Jared proceeds to take me on a 25-30 minute tour of the entire manufacturing facility, both the compound and the traditional lines. And I guess, one of the things that left me there is, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see it, but it's a picture I took on my phone. You can't see it, but this was in the plant, hanging up off of the ceiling. And it says, a customer is the lifeblood of this and every other business. So again, it's that focus of, this is sitting in the shipping and storage warehouse at the facility in Gainesville. And I think, and it's signed at the bottom, Fred Bear, with his signature. So I mean, this is a sign, and this is showing again that Fred Bear way, whether it's not getting caught up in this runaround and the rat race that we all can from time to time, but really getting somebody new, again, whether it's a child, an adult, a friend, somebody you don't know. Maybe it's somebody just says, hey, Brent, I know you're an outdoorsman. I know you're an archery guy. Hey, would you mind talking to my buddy over here? He said he was interested in something about bows and arrows, and I know you're the guy. All the way down to, again, while I was walking around that manufacturing plant and seeing this sign hanging up from the ceiling saying, a customer is the lifeblood of this and every other business, signed Fred Bear. I mean, that just, he's putting his personal impression on not only that facility, but really that comment of, this is the Fred Bear way.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a guy come up to me in Panera the other day who follows some of the postings that I'll do. And he said, he recognized me and he said, are you Brent? And I said, yeah. And he says, I know you're a big bow hunter. I follow a lot of the stuff that you do, and he says, I actually got one of your books and I read it. He said, what would the chance of me being able to go hunting with you on one of these trips, maybe out to Colorado or something sometime? Because he says, my heart has been dying. He says, I need to come alive. That's what this world of archery, gives us an opportunity to go out and literally get our hearts back. Because like you said, the weekday stuff we do drains us. And there's something that's restorative when we get out there. The whole game of being successful is not being seen, heard, or smelled. And so if we do our homework and we work on all those things, when we actually get out there, we're seeing animals, we're getting close, and it makes my heart beat. It makes my heart race. And that's what it's all about. It's not about, the animal we take home. I know, Roger Medley, one of our other pro staff members, whenever he and I go hunting, he'll always say this little prayer: God, I just pray that we have a successful hunt. And sometimes that means an animal. Sometimes.
Yep.
Because it's successful no matter what, because we've had a great time being out there pursuing what we love to do.
That's right. And a lot of the times it is just getting out there. I mean, I know that I'm fortunate enough to be able to hunt a lot, able to shoot in several different 3D shoots locally, Again, it's just something that is my passion and I love to do. I think that's the other piece is, and again, not to get too much into any one of your books, but following that passion, understanding what that passion is, what it means to you, being able to prioritize that in your life as something that needs to happen. Um, you know, I got the bow that I'm shooting for 2022 while I was out. I've been on the road for the last 3 weeks, and it was delivered while I was on the road. My wife said, "Hey, guess what just showed up? Here's the picture." And you get that text message, and it's like, "Oh
Oh
my
yeah.
gosh," you know. So I got back on Sunday morning extremely early this week, and went ahead and set my new bow up. And to your point, I hadn't been out hunting in a couple of weeks. And my wife just said to me, "Man, you got that new bow. You got it set up on Sunday. You got it dialed in on Sunday. You're just walked back in from your range saying, 'Man, this thing is great.'" And she just said to me, "Well, you wanted to hunt." She goes, "Why not take your new bow out tonight?" And she's
Oh,
like, "What do you got, an hour and 15 minutes before sunset? It's prime time." She's like, "You better get out there." But I think that's the other piece is, you mentioned Roger. I'm now talking about my wife. I mean, as you are going through your daily walk and you got recognized at Panera, people know that this is our passion, and people know that we're out there to help others and to enjoy the time in the woods, to appreciate not only the animals that we're pursuing but also everything else that's out there.
yeah.
And like, I can't tell you how many times I just sit on stand and it's like, man, that sunset was beautiful, or
Yeah.
I love just hearing the ripple of that creek in the background. Or you and I've shared some great stories about, you know, I got swooped by an owl, and it was, man, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. But again, all of these types of things, again, coming back to that, what does the Fred Bear Way mean to me? I think that also highlights some of them.
Yeah. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity we have.
I know you and I were also chit chatting a little bit. So you mentioned the don't be seen, smelled, or heard. And these are certainly principles that, as you and I think about, as we go to the field and things that we need to think about all the time. We also had kind of gotten into a dialogue around, using a primitive weapon, some of the joy and the appreciation that comes with that. Also, with someone else and creating that bond with those individuals. Um, so I didn't know if you wanted to hit on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and then the confidence part, I know, is another big one, especially as you and I love hunting with a bow.
Uh, the don't be seen, heard, or smelled. Let's kind of go back to that for a second. Let's kind
Yeah.
of touch on that. Archery is one of those things where it's not just about practicing on the range to make sure you're good at 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever you're going to be hunting at. Fooling, let's just go for whitetails for a second. They smell 10,000 times better than you and I do. I don't mean they smell better. It's like, hey, they smell great. I mean, they smell like a bloodhound. That's how, they have 6 sensors in their nose. They can pick up on anything. Think about it this way for a second. If you and I walked into grandmother's house on Thanksgiving, we'd go, man, I love this smell. It smells like Thanksgiving. We just smell the whole thing at once.
Hmm.
But you've got a whitetail. If that whitetail could talk and he walks in, he goes, I smell green bean casserole. I smell sweet potatoes. I smell stuffing. I smell turkey. And so we as hunters, we get out there and we want to be successful. So we take a kid out to the range, is what I was talking about a minute ago. You might be proficient out there shooting on the range, but if you can't get close, and if let's just start with this sense of smell, like I was talking about, if you don't know how to be able to play the wind right? If you don't know how to be able to get those exfoliating, you've got those skin cells that are respiring and they're letting off your specific body odor. If you don't get those off to the best of your ability, if you're not washing your clothes in like sport wash, for instance, something that doesn't have any UV dyes and brighteners, which we can talk about in a minute, but it also doesn't have any perfumes or fragrances, and it gets all of those smells out. Guys out there, don't go pumping gas in your hunting boots. I see this all the time. And even wearing your hunting clothes in the truck on the way to your thing. Well, I took a shower. Well, you've got skin cells that have come off all over your seat. Now they're all over the outside of your camo, like you're wearing right there. So it's important to make sure that we're doing all that stuff, because if you want a kid to be successful and get a passion for what you and I love to do, he's going to have to see some animals. He's going to have some opportunities, or the next thing you know, he's going, you know what? I'm going back to my PlayStation because I can get opportunities right here in front of me.
Right.
But it's not the real thing. It's not the real deal. And so being able to not be smelled is so important. Playing the wind, getting all the skin cells off of your garment. I'm sorry, my dog was starting to go there again. I think he brought back another box. That's a good thing. Maybe it's another bow. I don't know.
Nice.
But again, that was the not being smelled part. You know, the not being seen part is really key too, because what we don't realize is, you know, your garment, I'm sure, is UV dead, but a lot of the camouflage that we get is made in China, and we don't even think about this. They put UV dyes and brighteners inside the garment right before they ever put the camo pattern onto it. You and I wouldn't even think about it, but it actually, to the eye, picks up on it. It's a little more appealing. But if you took a black light or a UV light, ultraviolet light, and you were to take that light and you were to shine it on there, you would see that that garment isn't like a tan and like cream and white. It's glowing blue. And to a whitetail, their sense of vision in daylight hours, they see in two colors. They see in blue and they see in yellow. And everything in their world is like yellow tint, except for like things like the sky that are blue. Now, this is crazy. Things like poisonous mushrooms, poisonous snakes, those actually glow blue. Kind of crazy how that is. But UV dyes and brighteners in your garment also glow blue. So you want to help your kid be successful. Don't just teach them about not being smelled. Teach them how to not be seen, because that white-tailed deer in the first hour and last hour of daylight, and this is not just whitetail, it's all cloven hoofed animals and even game birds, even fish see brighteners like this. You got to teach them how to be able to get that stuff out of the garment. And they make sprays for that. There's a thing called UV killer you can use to get it out. But not being seen is so key. We think about, you know, being up in the tree stand. A buddy of mine has a television show. He's had it for years. And of all the things that he films, I say, what's the biggest mistake you see hunters make? He said, without a doubt, it's movement. And we'll with our bow, you know, we'll be up there and we're going, you know what, man, it's going to be a long day. I'll just go ahead and hang my bow way up here. And then we get back and we get relaxed. And all of a sudden, you know how it goes.
That's right.
I mean, no, turkey, you hear coming, unless they're coming in silent, right? But a whitetail, they're like a ghost.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you get that little flick of a tail or the twitch of an ear, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's right there.
Yep.
And you're having to wait to do everything you can to try to reach up to get that bow. Well, remember, if you've got a brightener and you're glowing blue, you're not like a camo thing moving. You're like this blue thing moving up in there, and he sees it. So think about all these things, not being seen, you know, not being able to get all those brighteners out, or not moving in the tree stand, getting that bow in a place where you can make quick access of it. And then the whole thing about not being heard. I was just doing a podcast the other day. We were talking about hunting, and he said, do you have any tips for maybe some of the listeners out there? And I said, you know, when I'm walking into the whitetail woods as an archer, I want to get close. And if I'm not doing a spot and stock, that means I'm probably going to my tree stand, and I've got to be really quiet. I said, one of the things that I do is I take along, you know, a mouth call with me. And instead of doing the normal pace of a hunter trying to quietly get there, sometimes I'll just be just kind of talking and taking my foot and taking some leaves and kicking them a little bit and scratching, you know, and sometimes like a little fight going on between a couple of them. They're getting irritated. And then when I get to my tree and I get all the way up in there, if I've made any kind of an accidental noise that made some sound, I'll take my hat off and I'll slap it against my leg like a fly down, you know, with my mouth call. And I've watched deer before. They're like 40 yards away that were bedded down, and I've come in on them, and I've done that. And they just kind of like look for a minute, put their heads back down, tails back down, go back to feeding or whatever. Yeah. And it's so important that we don't be seen, heard, and smelled. I also wear these pads. It's a thing called, what are they called? Called cougar paws. And they're like a pad you put on the bottom of your foot. It's like what you would see in a sound studio that absorbs the noise. When you walk, these things absorb breaking sticks. It's like putting like a memory foam pillow over top of a stick.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
But all this stuff, why am I saying all this stuff? Because, you know, I was looking at this bow a minute ago. You know, I got the new Bear bow in here. But if I want to make this successful, I've got to know what I'm doing.
That's right.
Not just be practicing on the range. I've got to understand the game that I'm pursuing, and I've got to understand how to not be seen, not be heard, and not be smelled. So.
That's absolutely right. Now it's interesting because the scene part, I think another aspect. So I guess first question. So have you ever tested a bow to see if they are UV dead or not? Because I'm assuming
Yeah.
that's a big mechanism. And like you said, you're either
Yeah.
holding it in your lap and you're waiting to see how and what and why. But I don't. Have you ever looked at any bows and see if they're
Yeah.
UV dead?
At the ATA show every year for you guys, the archery trade show that we have, we used to have a big, one of my sponsors actually makes the UV killer stuff.
Okay.
And I was working, we had a big black tent set up. It was like 8x10 or something, 10x10.
Hmm.
And we had a huge ultraviolet light in there. And we were taking other manufacturers' camouflage and we would hang it up and we would show the difference between UV dead and UV, hot.
Mhm.
And so we had a manufacturer. Well, actually, I went over to Bear. It was when Ross Reinhardt still used to be with Bear. And it was back on the Truth 1, Truth 2, and the Carnage and the Anarchy and all those things. And I said, can I check some of our bows? I said, I want to bring the risers in here and see how they are. He says, man, I'd love to see if we're good.
Yeah.
We took them in. They were perfect. Every single Bear bow we had.
Huh.
I'm not going to mention any other manufacturers because that's not I'm not here to trash somebody.
Yep.
I'm saying check your bow.
Yeah.
If it's not a Bear. But we took some others in there, and I'll never forget this one. The whole riser was as blue as a blue popsicle. Like, it was awful. And he said, what do we do? And I said, well, how did you have this done? He said, well, it's like an automotive coating that we had put on there. I said, can't change that. You can't get the UV out of that. So check your riser, because if that's blue, and think about, they make a bowstring wax that has a UV, protectant and block in there that you can put on, because some of these bowstrings have UV dyes and brighteners in them.
That's right.
You think about your fletching, when you're putting your arrow covers or coats on, it's sleeves. There's all kinds of things you don't even realize. So you really got to check all that stuff.
That's wild. And it's just, again, like, to a point of, there's all these little pieces that we need to think about, and all of this comes together to be that first time that you're going to see animals, and maybe you'll have an opportunity. But and it's interesting. I'm sure you're just like myself and all my buddies. We go out for our first hunt of the year, and you've got all these things going through your head at the same time, and it's you don't have all your gear in all the right spots just yet, and know where everything is.
Right.
But you're constantly trying to remind yourself of that. And I think that's part of the teaching part that I love to do is, what are those steps and what are those stages that you need to take someone through to help them to learn all of these aspects. And I think that's, a part of what you and I wanted to cover off on is, what is the Fredbear Way? What does it mean to not be seen, smelled, or heard? One of the bits that I've been trying to figure out a better way to teach people is, and this comes down to, you've done all the parts that we've already spoken about, right? And you now have an opportunity where that animal or a set of animals is, maybe you see them 80 to 100 yards out, and they're on the trail or one of the trails that you expected them to be on. And you can see, okay, I know they're going to be within 30, maybe even 20 yards soon. But there's always well, where are the trees? Which way is the wind blowing?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, there's a couple squirrels over that way that are going on. That might do something else. But it's knowing. And if you have to reach for your bow, or if your bow's already in your lap and it's just, I need to extend my left arm out and then grab my release. Okay, now I can move to where I need to be. Now I can draw. It's that being able to read the behavior, not only of that one animal, but maybe the other animals that are around in that environment, and know that, what, the wind's been, like, I was out Sunday night, the wind was a little bit gusty. I got into the stand, had an hour, 15 minutes or so before sunset. I was like, man, the wind's perfect for me in the stand. I'm going to go sit there. And wouldn't you know, about 15 minutes before sunset, the wind shifted on me.
Yeah.
Oh man, here we go. This could change the whole game. But I think it's that moment where you see the animals coming, that you're going to need to move a little bit to be able to get the right ethical shot at the right range, and everything else. And where you can draw and not hit your elbow on the tree behind you, because we've all had that happen a couple of times. But I think that's a wonderful teaching moment. I've not been able to figure out the right way to teach it without putting someone in the blind or in the stand with me and helping them to see the scenarios as they happen. But again, it's as we're kind of thinking through this, don't be seen part. That's definitely an aspect of the movement. But if you do the camouflage right, if you're thinking about your UV profile, you're actually able to reduce that risk of, being spotted.
Well, think about this for a second. We talk about not being seen. Movement's important, but they're going to have to be fairly close to you to see that movement. It's not so much because they have squirrels moving. There's even sounds. You have stuff falling in the woods sometimes. As long as it's not a consistent pattern or a metallic sound, it really doesn't bother them much.
Yeah.
But when you think about UV dyes and brighteners in your garment, here's how well they spot in low light, first hour and last hour of daylight. They see you better than you and I see blaze orange. You're glowing blue. They see that blue better than you and I see blaze orange. That's how much UV dyes and brighteners in your clothing or whatever you've got, they can spot it. So you might not even know that deer was there. You did something. Maybe you stopped to go to the bathroom. Maybe you've got a little Gatorade bottle or something, and you're standing up or you're moving. If you're UV hot, they can see that movement going on, that blue. So it's big. It's really important.
It is wild. So one of the other things that Brent does is he has a lot of speaking opportunities. He's also done a fair amount of writing. You and I had a chance to last bump into each other. I think it was at the Harrisburg Great American Outdoor Show. And fortunately, I bumped into you. I was at the Bear booth. You were working another booth. And you had a couple copies of your book, which I was able to purchase one from you. These are also out on Amazon, but I know it's a large part of the outreach and the passion that you have for kind of sharing your passion for the outdoors and archery, as well as other things with men in the community. But the subtitle here is Unleashing the Powerful Truth of Who You Really Are. So I don't know if you want to take us just through a top level about, what was the passion behind writing the book? What does it mean to you and other people? And then, there's some wonderful stories in here. I don't know if you want to highlight maybe just one of those, or at least give people a little sample of what.
Yeah, absolutely. When I wrote the book, the whole driving force behind it was, I'm actually getting ready to start working on another book right now. And it's, you think about this, whenever I go and I speak at game dinners, for instance, guys always get their cell phones out. They're showing you a picture of last year's buck, how big it was. And somehow, you always get those one-upper guys. It's like, oh yeah, but look at mine. Let me tell you the story on that. And they take over the conversation. Why do we do that? We've all probably done something like that at a time. Maybe we weren't trying to, but we did it. It's because we don't really understand who we really are. We think our worth and value comes from, hey, did I impress you? Because we're all trying to find like what we would call our good enough. And so when I wrote this book, the whole thing with the roar within, we all want to find that place because somehow we've all bought into the lie that our worth and value comes from our performance and what other people think about us. And from what I believe, it has nothing. My good enough will never come from for instance, what you think about me or who I'm speaking to or whatever, or even what I think about myself, because I could beat myself up because I could feel like, well, I didn't do this as good as you or somebody else or whatever. And if that's the case, I'll never live to my full potential of what I could do. I'll be comparing myself with other people. Say a basketball player comparing himself to Michael Jordan, LeBron James, or somebody. Well, you're not going to be them. But here's the thing. If you're trying to be someone else, you're never going to be that version of yourself that is the best you could be. You could be better than whatever that is, right? So the whole thing with unleashing the powerful truth of who we really are, it's that discovering that it's not what I say and do that really counts about who I am. It's for me. Now, let me just come back with this, is my upbringing. I was brought up in a Christian home. We believe in God, love God, and believe that's where our worth and value comes from. He's the one that made me. I think he knows me better than anyone else. So the beginning of the book, it's kind of cool. I start off with this quote, and I'm trying to remember, I wrote the thing, but I'm trying to remember. It says, oh, the power revealed the moment the lion cub roared and understood who he really was. Think about that for a second. Oh, the power revealed the moment the lion cub roared and understood who he really was. What is it like for us when we begin to understand that the sum of everybody and everything of who I really am has nothing to do with my performance, but has everything to do with this amazing creator who made me, who made all these animals that we love to pursue. And so in the very beginning in the intro, I was over in Africa. We were going to be doing a safari, but I spent a couple of weeks dinking around with a buddy of mine back then. We went to this little place called Balule. Now, Balule is a really special place. You've got the Timbabody lion pride over here. You've got these different lion prides. And it was a small little fenced-in area, maybe an 8-foot high, chain link fence. That was it. I mean, it was pretty edgy. But we're the only ones there. And I get this ironwood fire going, and it's dark out. You got the Southern Cross in the sky up there. It's really cool. And you're hearing totally different sounds than what you and I would be hearing here in North America, right? Mm-hmm. And so as I'm cooking this raw meat, that smell is drifting into the African bush. And before long, on the other side of the fence, maybe about 12 feet away from me, I see behind there, I see these golden eyes about 3 feet off the ground, just pacing. And I'm going, what am I seeing? And as the flicker from the fire kind of lifted a little bit, it's this huge full-grown male hyena, and they are way bigger than you're thinking that they are. And as I'm watching this, it walks up, it's looking at me, and it lifts his leg and he marks his territory against the fence. My buddy goes, what are you going to do about that? And I said, there's nobody around. I'm going to mark my territory. So I go walking down, and I mark my territory right where he went, right? Now there is a fence. Okay. But I go back and sit down and we get a good laugh out of it. And he comes back up again and he marks my territory. And my buddy looks at me and he goes, now what are you going to do? And I said, I saved a little. So I go walking down there and I mark my territory and I come back and he's about to mark it again. And I see him getting really nervous. And I'm going, what is going on? He's pacing. And next thing you know, he's kind of tucking his tail and he's getting ready to go. And I hear it. Maybe a half mile away. Whoa, whoa. You hear this male lion, how big he was, I have no idea. They can get up to 600 pounds. And this hyena tucks his tail and he's gone.
Wow.
What was it that made him tuck his tail and run? And this is the premise of the beginning of this book. You see, a lion will never bow to a hyena. And the one who made me will never bow to the enemy. And so when I think about who I really am, that I was created in his image, that I have him inside of me as a believer, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to worry about not being good enough to meet somebody else's standard. And guess what? If I don't have that fear, am I going to perform better or worse? Mm-hmm. So the whole book, Unleashing the Powerful Truth of Who You Really Are, is what this is about. And the whole book is nothing but crazy stories off the hook, being shipwrecked off the coast of Alaska or being charged by bears in Alaska or Colorado or all these things. So it kind of brings all that stuff that we love back into a framework, into a format that we can apply it to our life. That's what I love about what I do, because I get to take that outdoor stuff and I get to add value to other people. And again, we talked about the Fred Bear Way. Yep. That's what we're doing with young hunters. We're adding value to them by getting them out and teaching them how to do this stuff.
That's right. So. That's awesome. Well, Brent, I guess as I'm just thinking about our conversation and kind of wrapping to the end here, we did speak a lot about the Fred Bear Way and what that means to each of us. We talked about don't being seen, smelled, or heard, and the kind of the joy and the passion, I guess, of using a primitive weapon like a bow, and what that means to be able to get close. But I absolutely love the stories within the Roar Within.
I think wrapping up, all this stuff is this. I just want to say that the whole thing with the Fred Bear Way is he was unique. He did what he loved. He didn't make excuses for it, and he did it to the best of his abilities. That's right. Each one of us are uniquely made, and we have passions, whether it's in archery, whatever it is. I think the whole Fred Bear Way, you look at it as going, what can I do with what I love to pursue it in excellence? Yep. Because when I take what I'm passionate about, what I'm good at, and I really work at it, what's going to stop me?
That's right.
It doesn't matter how successful you might be in the world's eyes. If you love what you do and you get to do it, you're successful.
Yep. No, that's absolutely right. Excellent. Well, Brent, thank you again. Absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to, I'm sure we'll be connecting again shortly, but I could almost see this being a small series that we talk through a couple of different ideas. And I know you're getting ready to go back out on the road, so wish you luck with all of that.
Thank you.
I know you got a couple game dinners coming up here shortly, but look forward to chatting some more, understanding. I know you're shooting the 2022 Bear Archery Refined Echo as well. But I've had a phenomenal experience so far with that bow, an absolute shooter out of the box. And I'm sure we'll be swapping some stories on that as well. So look forward to having you guys join us again soon. But Brent, thanks to you for taking some time out today, and look forward to chatting again soon, man.
All right. Thanks for having me, buddy.
We'll see you.
Take care.